raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change. Time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome back, Patriots, to the Raising Cain Show. We have got some awesome stories to break tonight on the show. And to help me do that, I have invited back on the show a great guest, investigative journalist Jerome Corsi. But before we get into what we're going to be breaking and all of that, I'm going to run those commercial breaks now. That way we can have an uninterrupted forum to talk about these things. So we will be right back after a short commercial break.
Heard of Q Broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Starz. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
Since 2017, 150,000 farms have shut down. Working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, like pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by A.J. Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Ents, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
Welcome to the Raising Cain Show. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Dr. Jerome Corsi, a powerhouse investigative journalist, best-selling author, and the fearless voice behind Corsi Nation, with over 30 books published, including 6 New York Times bestsellers and 2 that soared to #1. Dr. Corsi has spent decades exposing truths the mainstream media ignores, from uncovering the Obama-Biden Honduras deal, driving illegal immigration and child trafficking, to unraveling ActBlue's hidden influence, to dissecting Russiagate and warning of the EU's looming collapse. He connects the dots with unmatched clarity. Thank you guys for joining me. And Dr. Corsi, thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Well, Nate, it's a great pleasure to be back with you. Thank you very much.
So there is a lot to unpack. A lot of stuff is going on, and we were talking before the show in the green room about how it seems that there's some stuff happening within the Justice Department that I think is the very beginnings of going after some of these corrupt criminals that have been, basically bringing people into this country illegally. Do you want to go ahead and kind of talk about that first, and we can get into that and talk about what's going on? What are you seeing right now as kind of the things that are being uncovered and exposed?
Well, I've really dedicated a lot of time now to ActBlue, and we'll get right into ActBlue. And our website, I posted in the chat, which is gods5stones.com. A lot of material is getting posted there. That's our 501c3 nonprofit organization that I use for investigative research. Now, the story essentially is that ActBlue, which is under federal investigation right now by the Department of Justice, and I've brought everything I'm going to tell you tonight, I've brought to the Department of Justice, and they are investigating it. Now, ActBlue is known to be this juggernaut, this fundraising juggernaut for the Democrats. The Democrats said, just donate to ActBlue, and therefore then we'll donate where we need to donate your money best. And it's been mostly known for this surfing fraud, which is the billions of dollars ActBlue raised. We're going to Democratic political campaigns, but to get the money into a Democratic political campaign, they had to steal the identity of someone who could be a legitimate Social Security number, name, so the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, could see that contribution came from someone. And so they would steal your identity and make 2,000 contributions to Democratic political campaigns that you knew nothing about. That's what's come out so far, but it's much deeper than that. ActBlue has been a funnel for criminal money of a really dark nature and foreign money. We're going to cover both of those tonight. But first of all, it starts with the whistleblower, Sean Taylor. And Sean Taylor is the one who really I want to attribute as the original investigator here. He was a assistant police chief in a small town outside of Nashville. And he observed that there were, going back maybe 10 or 15 years ago, going back to 2014 for sure, but probably back to 2011, there were the waterways that were coming, the cocaine from Sinaloa drug cartel in Mexico, fentanyl from China, and children in the sex trade and organ harvesting trade. Now, he investigated that, and he found out that there was a magic mortgage scheme where the criminals involved would buy a house for $100,000 locally, and they would get a $1 million loan on that house that was registered in LexisNexis, but didn't show up in the deed. And now what that indicates, again, I caught HSBC money laundering in 2011. They paid a $1.9 billion fine. We'll probably talk about that later tonight. But the point
we
is,
definitely should.
Yeah, we will get into that. But the point is that I've done a lot with money laundering. I created 2 broker dealers, and I have securities licenses. I understand money laundering. So the point is that the criminals near Nashville were getting the money that they received from these drug and child sex and organ trade traffic into banks illegally. It was money laundered into the banks. And so the banks, to get it out, said, if you buy a house, we'll give you a mortgage. Now, that wasn't a real mortgage. It was a mortgage internally within the computer system of the bank. But they still got $1 million out, and it was registered because LexisNexis picks up all these official transactions. But again, when it didn't show up in the deed, it meant that the loan was not really made as a mortgage loan. There's no expected payment back.
For
Yes.
those that are watching the show that don't know what LexisNexis is, can you describe what that is?
Well, LexisNexis is a large kind of public service that collects all kinds of data publicly. It's expensive to belong to it, but it has all kinds of data sources. So, for instance, LexisNexis picks up anytime a bank registers a transaction. Okay, that transaction, like a mortgage made, that picks it up, and it's a registry of public documents. It's a massive database, and I've used it for years. But it again is accurate, but it does not reflect. So, for instance, when LexisNexis reflected that a mortgage was made to a drug dealer for $1 million in a house that was worth $100,000, they picked up internally in the bank that somehow or other a transaction left the bank as a mortgage loan at $1 million for this house. But then when you look at the deed, it doesn't show up in the deed. So in other words, that was an internal transaction within the bank that this public record source, LexisNexis, picked up and recorded. Now, that permitted you to know that a money laundering transaction had occurred. And what Sean Taylor was beginning to find is when he looked at the top people of ActBlue, for instance, there was this Stefan Jones, who was Regina Wallace Jones's husband. Now, she headed ActBlue in, after a certain period of time. She belonged to it for a long time before she headed it. But she would buy a house in Palo Alto, in California, for $1 million, and then she would get a $50 million loan on that house, registered in LexisNexis. But again, it was not a real mortgage because the value to the loan, the value of the house alone was only worth $1 million. How could you get a $50 million magic mortgage loan on a house worth $1 million? The loan is worth $50 million. Well, it was just passing illegal money to her.
Right.
And that money could go to fund other NGOs, non-governmental organizations like LexisNexis would go to Antifa or Black Lives Matter. And these Democrats were funding these organizations. So now the question was, where did the money come from? Okay, now what Sean Taylor has documented, and also Mark Fincham in Arizona, who has an election integrity group. The two of them have been working together for years. What this stems back to research that was done by Mike McCormick. Now, I know Mike McCormick. He was a stenographer, White House stenographer for Joe Biden for 6 years. And he wrote 2 books. He wrote this one, An Almost Insurmountable Evil, published by Post Hill Press, which I work with as an acquiring editor, and The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. Mike McCormick was the stenographer of Joe Biden. So going back to about 2011, the Biden administration started discussions with Honduras. Okay, so it was Obama administration, 2011. Vice President Biden was leading the discussions, and it was led by a gentleman named McDonough, who was the chief of staff for Obama at that time. He was Catholic, and the entree to talk about Honduras came from Pope Francis and Cardinal McCarrick, who was a homosexual. Was ultimately laicized after this became known. He was removed from being a priest. After what he did was he was inviting seminarians to vacation with him, and he was sleeping with the seminarians and having homosexual sex. Now, he comes into the White House in 2011 and starts talking about we need the Obama and Biden administration to make deal with Honduras to open the border. In 2014, they finally get this Alliance for Prosperity established with President Honduras in Honduras, President Hernandez in Honduras, who was a member of the Sinaloa drug cartel.
Mm-hmm.
So we start sending, the Obama administration starts sending millions of dollars to Honduras, and suddenly, in 2014, Honduras starts opening its border, and hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors start coming across the border from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And we actually publish a picture, and this is both on the God's Five Stones website. I published it on AmericanThinker.com and Gateway Pundit. Now I've got articles out on all of these showing that the deal was made to open the border to three things: child sex trade and organ harvesting, with hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors crossing the border, while the Border Patrol stood down under the Obama administration. The Sinaloa drug cartel could bring in cocaine, and a deal was made with Communist China to bring in fentanyl. Pope Francis had also made a deal with Communist China, where Communist China was in charge of the Catholic Church in China, which meant the Catholic Church was going to be suppressed and repressed. Now, billions of dollars were coming into this, and it was going into the banking system that ultimately was illegal money. Now, in bank money laundering, the key is, first of all, you got to have illegal money. You got to have illicit money. And somehow that gets into a bank, and banks will take criminal money. Banks money launder all the time. And to get it out of the bank, you have to have a scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in 2011, I caught HSBC doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I wish to say, that the banks were not all criminal involved with this, or the CIA or the National Security Administration agency tracking all this, or the Department of Treasury. Unfortunately, the conclusion I'm going to come to is that our government is the biggest child sex trader in the world and the biggest dealer of drugs in the world through the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And the banks launder the money, and the Treasury Department lets them get away with it.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting because HSBC was all over the documents that I brought out of the FBI when I blew the whistle on all of the illicit money laundering that was going on with the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
They were very involved in a lot of that. And so that's interesting because it seems that, they've been protected clearly, because I think there are probably people, within the intelligence community that have utilized them for, their black operations and things like that.
I wrote a book called Partners in Crime.
Mhm.
And I documented that the Clinton Foundation was simply a scheme. It was a bribery scheme.
Yeah.
With Hillary Clinton's private email server in the State Department, Bill Clinton running the Clinton Foundation, where any criminal oligarch in the world that wanted favors for the State Department could pay the Clinton Foundation. They would create some kind of a do-good idea, and then the money would get stolen by the Clintons. And I guess one of the best examples of that was the Haiti, earthquakes,
Yeah.
in which literally Hillary and Bill Clinton sold billions of dollars, and they ran a child sex trade operation out of Haiti.
That's right. In fact, that's something that we never really heard about after, it kind of hit the news cycle. It was quickly quieted down, but there was a woman arrested for
Yes.
child trafficking on the island, and she was taking children that belonged to people, other, families, was trying to sneak out of the country with them, and she got caught and thrown in prison.
Well, and the Clintons were deeply involved in it.
Yep.
And
Well,
so
that's the thing is this woman was employed by Hillary Clinton.
that's right. She was part of the Clinton operation.
Yep.
Now, what I found in 2011, John Cruz, who was a relationship manager in Long Island for HSBC, he came to me and he said, look, I've got 1,000 pages here of documents out of the computer system of HSBC. He said, I'm a relationship manager. My job is to, go to businesses that have a relationship with HSBC. Maybe they've got a checking account, and I want to see if they can take a line of credit or a loan, take another relationship to deepen the relationship with HSBC and make them a more profitable client. And John Cruz said I would go out to these businesses, and the computer said that they had run millions of dollars through their accounts. And I go out there and knock on their door, and there was nobody in the offices. These were companies
Shell
that didn't
corporations.
shell corporations.
Yeah. Yep. That
And
was
so
what was being identified in those documents.
And so I got the documents. I called up this gentleman in New York City, probably about 86 years old, and said, so this can be a very unusual call, but is your social security number? And I read it to them. And he said, how did you get that? I said, okay, let me explain another thing, sir, before we get to that. Did you run $3 million through your account at HSBC last week before you zeroed it out? And he said, I closed that account 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I said, well, you better give me the name of your lawyer because I've got documents say contrary. And you may want to look into it because it appears to me that HSBC used your identity, opened an account, ran $3 million through it, and then they closed the account zero balance. So it didn't have to be reported to anybody. So now you and your lawyer might want to do something about that. And I gave him all the data and let him run with that. But when I got contacted by this when I was reporting for WorldNet Daily back in 2011, and so I wrote articles on this. The Senate Permanent Investigating Committee contacted me, said, Dr. Corsi, we'd like to see your data. I handed it all over to them. I did not claim whistleblower status. John Cruz was trying to be a whistleblower. I supported him. By the way, I don't think he got a penny out of this. And Department of Homeland Security called me, and I said, okay. I met with them in a building downtown Manhattan with no windows, unidentified building. I turned over all the information I had. So Loretta Lynch, of all people, the Department of Justice in New York, who ultimately became the Attorney General and a fixer in the Hillary Clinton email scandal, she fined HSBC, I think, $1.9 billion. And the Senate Permanent Investigating Committee wrote about a 500-page report, and they said this was all money laundering for the Mexican drug cartels. Okay, so I caught them that time. But now with ActBlue, it appears to me that the Democratic Party has found a way to fund its candidates, its non-governmental organizations, probably Soros and a whole bunch of others, by child sex labor and organ harvesting at the border, cocaine trafficking with Sinaloa drug cartel, and President Hernandez, who made the deal with Joe Biden in 2014, is now in federal prison for cocaine smuggling into the United States and allowing China to bring fentanyl into the United States. Now, I think when the American people realize that the Democratic Party has been funded by child sex trade and organ harvesting alone, it's going to be the end of the Democratic Party. And I quite frankly feel that I'm on this story in such a way that by the time we're done reporting it, the Democratic Party is going to cease to exist.
Yeah. Well, the fact is that they've. I think the Democrat Party has been corrupt for a very long time. I would say, they've had, but it seems like they've stepped up their game considerably, and that there is zero moral compass at all with, with the party. They have, have it does not surprise me one bit that they are where they're at, and I do think that it is a criminal organization at this point. Now with ActBlue, I remember seeing there were some other people that had come out and they were going around and interviewing, knocking on doors of people's homes, who showed that they had given like consistently like $50 here, $100 there, $50 here, $100, like whole bunch of transactions happened in their name, donating to candidates with ActBlue. And it turns out when they knocked on these people's door to talk to them, they said, "I've never donated to this candidate, or I never made any donation to ActBlue." And so they were basically being used as like straw donors, which is another criminal act. When it comes to FCC violations or
FEC,
FEC violations.
Federal Election Commission. Yeah, I mean, it's called smurfing.
Right.
What they do is they'll steal your identity and then maybe make 2,000 transactions using your name and social security number, contributing to Democratic campaigns out of the ActBlue funds.
Right.
And you know nothing about it.
So if these people didn't actually donate that money, but the money still ended up there, it seems to me, you connect the dots, the stuff that you're bringing up now, that's how they're washing this money and getting it into ActBlue is through these straw donors.
Well, and it's how they get it out of ActBlue into political campaigns.
Okay.
So the money comes in through the criminal activities. I mean, the money comes in through the Biden and
right. Are
Obama.
They a 501c4?
It's 501c3.
C3,
or maybe C4.
No, I think it's a C4. So
you're probably right. It's a C4. Yeah.
So when I was looking into this when I ran for Congress, because I was like shocked at how money can go into running, advertisement for a candidate, and there's nothing in the law that says that you have to disclose where that money came from. That's the dark money. And 501c4 can take in money from basically anywhere. And so money can be coming in, through LLCs. It can be coming in through other 501c4s or PACs. It's a whole lot of things that money going into these elections is done. And I think like 50% of it, can be directly spent on candidates, and the other 50% has to go towards, some sort of nonprofit activity. But what I saw in the documents that Hillary was being investigated for was that money was going out of the Clinton Foundation and Clinton Global Initiative and was going towards projects. A lot of times it was building projects like in Haiti or like in Africa, and that money was going to shell corporations that didn't exist, but yet was disappearing. So it's like you're right. It is it's a way that they fund candidates, but it's also a way that they are laundering money.
And they get it to, so, the people who run ActBlue and these other non-governmental organizations, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, they buy themselves mansions. But they also then fund these anti-American organizations.
Yeah.
So it's like the U.S. aid money, which got politicized in order to create organizations that would destroy America.
Yeah.
And,
which is interesting because the person put in charge of USAID, of course, was Samantha Power.
Right.
And what a lot of people may not remember about her was at the end of the Obama administration, there were hundreds of American citizens that were unmasked, and that data was shared multiple agencies. And there was one name that was on all of those unmaskings, and it was Samantha Power.
Right. And so I want to show you a couple. I put in the chat. I'm going to put in the chat a couple of government reports. This is one on TD Bank, Toronto Dominion Bank. And I put it in the chat here so you can pull it up on the broadcast.
Okay.
And take a look at it. I'm pasting it right now in the chat. This is there, you've got it in chat. You can pull up the document, look at it. It's a U.S. Department of Justice Criminal Division report that came out in October 2024 on TD Bank, which is Toronto Dominion Bank. Now, Toronto Dominion Bank is the 10th largest bank in the United States, and it pleaded guilty to failing to maintain anti-money laundering programs in the bank that violated the Bank Secrecy Act. And they paid, I believe, a $1.8 billion fine and penalties. Now, the key thing here is that this FinCEN and the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice found that, if you read about the middle of the report, that from January 1, 2018 to April 12th, 2024, 92% of the total transaction volume going through TD Bank was unmonitored for the money laundering reporting that is required by the federal government. And that amounted to $18.3 trillion in transaction activity.
That is a lot of money.
So conceivably, TD Bank was laundering $18.3 trillion worth of money. And all that the criminal division of the Department of Justice could find in 2024, of course, it's still the Obama Department of Justice, was they found 3 money laundering networks, one of which it involved 5 TD Bank employees that collectively transferred $670 million through TD Bank accounts between 2019 and 2023. Now, that's $670 million. The Department of Justice did not find out, well, what about the $18.3 trillion? Where did that come from and where did that go? Department of Justice didn't investigate it under Biden. They just blame 5 employees for what is a massive bank failure to follow money laundering reporting standards of the federal government. Now, this is, again, the kind of bank that's involved in money laundering that I suspect is involved in the drug the child sex trade, all the rest of this. I mean, Nate, I want to ask a simple question.
Yeah.
If you're running a drug cartel and you've got piles of cash, $100 bills, you can't drive around with a semi-trailer filled with $100 bills to pull up to a lunch stand to buy your lunch by pulling out of the back of the trailer $100 bills. You've got to get the money into a banking system.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to use a credit card. So money laundering through banks, which is monitored by, the U.S. government, the National Security Agency monitors all bank transactions. Treasury does. The CIA is involved in it. Well, the CIA has been money laundering since before World War II, when the OSS was created, and there's a history of money laundering out of Southeast Asia and China. And the drug cartels work hand in hand with the intelligence agencies and the banks. There's just a fact. And the American people got to wake up to this. Okay, now, I mean, $18.3 trillion in transaction activity over the years 2018 to 2024, which are the years the Biden administration was in power. Why didn't the Biden administration do something to stop that?
Yeah. Something else that comes to mind in regards to HSBC, I mean, honestly, how that bank is even still allowed to operate blows my mind. But, remember the Panama Papers?
Yes.
HSBC was implicated in over 15,600 offshore companies. HSBC alone was linked to 2,300 of those. And of course, the reporter that broke the story on the Panama Papers was murdered in a car bomb.
Right.
I mean, it's no joke. These people kill people.
Well, it's amazing I'm still around. I mean, I think
you are going to be receiving extra prayers from me. I'll tell you that much.
Well, the only way I stay around is I report things as soon as I've got them.
Absolutely.
So they get rid of me. They're just going to make the stories I'm reporting all that much more credible. I want to show you a second one. I just put it in the chat. You can pull this up. This is a FinCEN report.
Okay.
This is FinCEN. FinCEN is part of the Department of Treasury, and FinCEN reports on. FinCEN is the division of the Department of Treasury that maintains the standards by which financial institutions are supposed to report suspicious transactions. And of course, we just saw that TD Bank had no regard for it whatsoever for 6 years during the Biden administration. Okay, in terms of the Obama-Biden, I mean, this went from 2018 to 2024. So was Biden and Obama. This report here on the FinCEN says that they're raising the alarm on Chinese money laundering networks, which pose a significant threat to the U.S. financial system. So that what's happening is that the Mexican drug cartels, which are designated foreign terrorist organizations, are utilizing individual passport holders from the People's Republic of China to enable the cartels to poison Americans with fentanyl, conduct human trafficking, and wreak havoc by getting the money from all these activities deposited into financial institutions that are then money laundered.
Wow.
So it's there. This statement in the third paragraph: Chinese money laundering networks are global and pervasive, and they must be dismantled, said FinCEN Director Andrea Gacki. These networks launder proceeds for Mexican-based drug cartels that are involved in other significant underground money movement schemes within the United States and around the world. FinCEN's advisory and financial trend analysis support Treasury's continuing efforts alongside law enforcement and our international partners to bankrupt transnational criminal organizations and their enablers. Well, we're not doing very well with it because we are the drug cartels. We are the child sex trafficking networks. And when these reports come out, they are such massive negligence that it can only be explained by criminal complicity from within the government.
Yeah. Well, the FinCEN, look, folks, FinCEN produces suspicious activity reports. And the way that works is the Treasury produces it, then it goes over to the FBI. FBI then reviews it with their analysts. They're looking at it and they're tracking down all of the accounts and money going from here to there to here to there. And that's what made up the bulk of what I turned over was those FinCEN reports that the FBI had and ignored. That leadership at the FBI basically had shut down the investigations into it, even though it was 3 separate field offices looking into it.
Because the Department of Justice is complicit.
Yeah.
So when you read this report, it said to launder illicit cartel funds, these Chinese money laundering networks often utilize trade-based money laundering, money mule, and minor transactions and methodology. So they get the money into the banking system through check cashing and other facilities in Mexico.
Right.
But then the Chinese money laundering networks also recruit financial institution employees to act as complicit insiders or infiltrate and place Chinese money laundering members within a financial institution to assist in the Chinese money laundering operations. Okay, so the point is, that sounds like it's minor employees. No, the bank at the highest levels know this is going on. This is not hidden within the bank. The bank, what John Cruz found was that branch managers, in fact, bank security, when he brought this to bank security officers, they told him not to investigate it anymore. That was not in his job.
Yeah.
To think that the banks are innocent is naive. To think that the Department of Justice under Obama and Biden was not, or that Biden himself and Obama, they were setting up these criminal activities along with the Pope and along with Cardinal McCarrick.
Is this where some of the money that was funneled into Catholic charities that's been very involved in basically the illegal immigration problem?
And I've been quoting Archbishop McCarrick, who's been reporting that literally billions of dollars went into the Catholic charities in order to, assist these immigrants to integrate into our society. And so the Catholic Church, which has been besieged by the priest pedophile scandal, turns around and supports illegal immigrants and gets rewarded by the Biden and Obama administrations with billions of dollars in government funds to help these illegal immigrants locate within the United States.
Yeah.
No.
Well, look right here. It's talking about the financial institutions filing 1,600 over 1,600 BSA reports in their data set indicating suspicious activity potentially involving human trafficking or human smuggling. They also have here the next one down that was 766 million in suspicious activity that that went to adult and senior daycare centers, or that was involving 83 adult and senior daycare centers, all of which listed addresses in New York, which is very interesting.
Well, they also say financial institutions filed 17,389 of these reports that are associated with more than 53.7 billion in suspicious activity involving the real estate sector. Now that's where you get your magic mortgages.
Yeah, 53.7 billion. Yep.
Okay, so now this is the criminal activity that's funding ActBlue. It's funding, Black Lives Matter. It's funding Antifa. It's the same thing we saw with USAID. They've figured out how to money launder with impunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the banks are running the drug trade, and the CIA is running the drug trade, and that Obama and Biden stood down the Border Patrol and told them not to do their jobs.
Yep. Yeah, they want to keep the money flowing.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard said there were maybe as many as 750,000 children that were found in this unaccompanied minors coming across the border that all get lost into the sex trade. Now, fortunately, I'm seeing activity within the Trump Justice Department where they're beginning to go after these, find these children and arrest the sex traffickers.
Yeah, I think out of the they've found 20,000 of the, what was it, 300,000 kids or something like that that were missing. They found 20,000 of them. Out of that 20,000, there have been nearly 500 arrests where they had people who essentially had taken these kids, claiming to be their parents, and then were utilizing them either in sex trafficking or they were utilizing them in as slave labor. And then those are the ones that they found, 20,000 that they found. It's long been suspected that many of these kids that have disappeared may have been murdered and had their organs harvested. And what's fascinating about China's connection to all of this is China is known for that. That is a huge problem in their own countries, is organ harvesting.
Well, they've had the Falun Gong, which they've organ harvested for years, and it's been known. But I've tried. Here's when I get into this and look at the scale of the corruption.
Yeah. 13 trillion. I mean, honestly, they should seize all of those funds and apply it towards the national debt.
Well, yes, and the idea that we have this going on, I mean, that this is happening, is so abhorrent, so evil.
It is.
If this is the way the Democratic Party has funded itself, when we get this known to the American people, when the American people finally get their heads around what's going on, I don't see how the Democratic Party can survive this.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party became communist, then it became treasonous, and now it's become criminally treasonous.
Yep.
And taking money from China, taking money from child sex trade. And here's
From
what
cartels. Yep.
Cartels, Archbishop Vigano was excommunicated by Pope Francis in 2024. And by the way, I published his book on the excommunication. It's in English. You can get it on Amazon. He said in a 2005 letter to American Catholics, which was entitled "Against Spiritual Wickedness," he said, along with Catholic charitable organizations, the sum received by the American Catholic Church for welcoming immigrants amounts to $2.4 billion, an exorbitant figure that highlights at least a serious conflict of interest that does not solve the social problems that derive from it in the least, and is gravely detrimental to the entire Catholic Church to have bishops for whom the maintenance of power renders irrelevant the link between the presence of thousands of irregular minors on American soil and their exploitation by perverts, pedophiles, organ harvesters, and criminals of all kinds. Now, I was raised Catholic, and to me, it's just abhorrent that the Catholic Church would be involved in this.
Well, under the former Pope, it does not surprise me. I mean, his involvement in pushing the Marxist agenda all around the world was very disturbing. But, and I'm talking about Pope Francis, of course.
Well, Pope Leo's just had a series of pictures taken with the major LGBT figures, and they've allowed to come into St. Peter's Cathedral, the LGBT contingent in hundreds with a rainbow cross crucifix leading the way.
Yeah, it's an abomination.
It's an abomination. Well, that was my book on Obama. I called it The Obama-Nation, and I did that right out of the Bible.
Yep.
In Daniel, the whole abomination, desolation of abomination this is what we're experiencing, and the depravity and the evil is massive.
Oh, it is. There's something shifted in our country, and not just our country, but the world, during the Obama years. And it was like, prior to that, there was evil, but it was afraid to show its face, and so it hid and lurked in the shadows. After Obama got elected, and I would say in his second term especially, it seemed that like just there was like a demonic revolution, if you will, in our country. And it was like every demon was walking around, completely unmasked, in their human suit of whoever they possessed. And I mean, I really do see what has happened in this country, especially like with the transgender movement, and the mental illness that has taken place, that has been supported and pushed by the previous administration, has just been so disturbing. And I have often wondered, is this it for America? Are we done?
Well, I'm continuing God's Five Stones because if you take a look, we revised the website. What I caught first was the algorithms, these secret codes that have been placed in the government, in every state's Board of Election database, which allows for the creation of millions of false voters, the duplicate votes or false votes, just fabricated, that yet are able to get legitimate state IDs. and so they can be
Yeah.
used in mail-in ballot schemes. And we found this, and with Andrew Paquette, who did the work, really genius work to break the code. We can mathematically demonstrate that they're there. And so the first efforts we did with God's Five Stones was to reveal that. And now that's going to be, the stolen elections are going to be Donald Trump's next executive order, in which I'm anticipating he's going to be demanding voter IDs, proof of citizenship, paper ballots, and this, massive general mail-in ballots, and go back to the absentee ballot system. But now we've added, the child and sex labor exploitation. We've added the investigation of the ActBlue, and in the spiritual warfare that we're under. This is a spiritual battle we're engaged in right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's important for people to remember, that there's only so much that we as human beings can do. We need God's help in this fight, because our battle really is a spiritual one more than it is a physical one, because there are demonic forces that are behind all of this.
Well, I do podcasts every weekday on CorsiNation.com, which is my podcast website, and I'm still shadow banned by Facebook and X. I can't. I mean, they threw me off both when the Mueller investigation wanted to put me in prison, and they said I had a tie to Julian Assange, and they were going to bring me before a jury in Washington, D.C. that would convict me of a crime and go to prison the rest of my life, or I could take a plea deal and admit I had a tie to Julian Assange that I'd hid
I
from
remember
them.
that. That was just insane.
And I refused to take their plea deal. And I said, I couldn't bear the idea of going before God and a judge and swearing to a lie in order to keep myself out of jail. So I said, just put me in jail. Well, they did not indict me, and said they closed the Mueller investigation, but yeah, my wife was told, so she supported me during it, but afterwards she's so traumatized, she had an affair, and she divorced me and ended our 32-year marriage. So I've gone through a lot for this, and I'd do it again. But the point is that it is a spiritual battle. And when we face that the corruption is the government, and that we have allowed our institutions of government to become corrupted, the weaponized Department of Justice. Now, Donald Trump is doing an enormous amount to get this corruption rooted out and exposed. And the second term, I think, after he survived the assassination attempt, I see that he's now much more spiritual than he ever was. I think his faith in God has deepened, and his resolve to,
without a doubt,
root out these problems is now determined. I don't think he cares what opposition he gets. He's going to do. I think he's now getting the military, if necessary, to bring order to our Democratic-controlled cities. I think he's going to get voter integrity, so we can get. I think if we have a fair election, half or more of the Democrats in Congress will lose their seats in the House and Senate. I think they're there because of cheating.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. I've done a lot of work on election integrity, and especially after the 2020 election, and I found that there was so much just padding of the voter rolls that it was clear to me, what they did. I mean, they basically were filling the voter rolls with fake voters, and then I was involved in an investigation that discovered a massive counterfeit ballot operation that wasn't just running out of New York. And these were the ballots that were making it, across the border, that Jesse, the truck driver, a lot of people heard his story. That's been verified. The FBI was actually brought in to investigate that, along with it was the Postmaster General for New York, because it was about $80 million worth of stolen postage. It was you had the FBI involved, you had the U.S. Attorney's Office involved. There was also Bill Barr himself was directly involved, and then all of a sudden, about a week after he creates this task force, he shuts it all down.
Well,
And
the cover up has been enormous, and I think because we exposed the algorithms, they weren't used in 2024 in the presidential election.
yeah,
Because in 2020 they did not stop counting, and then they produced all of the mail-in ballots that they needed to have Biden take a lead when they recounted, started opening up the counting, going to in 2024. We'd have caught them if they'd done that. So the battleground states quit counting on election night and all reported for Trump, which is what they should have done in 2020.
yeah. Well,
But
it's interesting. I did a Substack article. I'm seeing if I can pull it up here. On after this last election, and it's interesting. The only places where the Democrats won all had several things in place to facilitate cheating in the election, and it's basically like a picture's worth 1,000 words in this. But,
well,
let's see if I can find it.
all the Democratic motions on voting are designed to facilitate cheating.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
And the Democrats are now reduced to supporting, sex operations on children before they reach the age of puberty, Mexican drug cartel not being
Yeah.
deported from the United States, and MS-13 gangs and Venezuelan gang criminals. The Democrats are supporting everything evil, and their positions, I think it's I think it's a suicidal proposition that evidently Democrats think they can destroy America in the process of destroying the Democratic Party. But I still
Yeah.
believe we have a moral character to this country and that we will overcome this with the help of God. I always end my podcast saying, in the end, God always wins, and imploring people to go to 2 Chronicles 7:14 and get on our knees and ask God's forgiveness for letting this corruption get so rampant, because I think God will hear the prayer and God will have to heal our land. It's going to take a divine intervention to get evil this deeply rooted removed. And that's
Yeah.
at God's 5 stones, which of course is modeled after David picking up the right 5 stones in a brook to go after Goliath. We're aiming to, go after, and of course our funding. If I had been on the other side, I'm sure I would have been a billionaire by now. But the point is, our side always struggles for funding.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we got to get it from legit sources.
Right.
I want to show this because I thought this was just such a valuable visual, right? And I wrote it. A picture's worth a million votes. Basically, what you're seeing here, and let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. There we go. This is a picture based on different state laws. So party control of state legislature. So you can see that. Okay. And this is how the presidential election outcome was for 2024.
Well, that's it.
Illegal immigrant driver's licenses. Look at how much this matches. You think there could be a possible link? I'd say so.
I'd say so too.
All mail voting. So these are the states that allow for all mail voting. The blue ones, and then the ones that are kind of half. It's county by county, but the majority of those counties, if it's red, and the majority if it's blue. Felon voting rights. Online voter registration with no ID required. Private financing of elections. These are states that allow for, and that one is like a really, really interesting close link.
Right.
Meaning they allow elections to be, ran by the CTCL monies to basically fund drop boxes in places. Delayed ballot returns. These are states that don't count the ballots. They won't release they'll allow for ballots to return after the date of election. No voter ID requirements. These are the states in blue that have no voter ID requirement. And then no drop box surveillance. So these are states that the blue ones are states that allow for drop boxes and have it as a part of their law that they do not allow surveillance on a drop box. Now, Why would you say, we're going to have a drop box in all these city locations, but we're going to make it a law that they cannot put a camera on that? There's only one reason for that, and that is so that they can cheat and get away with it. And of course, California is one of the biggest ones in that, right?
Absolutely.
So we've got to do something to change all this. And I'm glad that Trump, I don't necessarily like executive orders, to push things, but I think in this case, I think he's got to do it. And yeah, there's going to be things that are going to go to the Supreme Court, but I think it's a necessity. I think we've got to do it.
Well, if we get a fair election, there'll be a substantial Democrats are going to lose massively. There'll be a substantial GOP margin, and we get laws passed. And the rhinos there's too many rhinos making millions of dollars. There's too much money in politics in general, and the corruption is massive. So we've got lots to do here, but I'm confident that we're exposing it, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to come on your show, Nate, and disclose as much of the work we're doing on ActBlue, especially, and the money laundering, especially, to get this word out. This is my next major campaign.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I want to thank you, Dr. Corsi, for the work that you're doing. I think that without brave, and it is, listen, folks, as somebody who was a whistleblower who had attempts on my life, I cannot stress this enough. It is dangerous work to expose these types of criminals. So please keep Dr. Jerome Corsi in prayer. Check out his website, God's Five Stones, and CorsiNation.com. That's been scrolling along the bottom there. And please do go and check out that website. I always like to I always make it a habit of asking my guest at the end of the show, we talked about a lot of things, but what is kind of the most important thing that you want people to take away from this conversation?
The evil of money laundering and child sex trade, funding the Democratic Party, it's got to stop. And we cannot abandon our children to this evil.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Corsi, will you join me in prayer as we close out the show?
Yes, I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you so much, Lord, for the work that Dr. Corsi has been bringing forward in his investigative journalism. And I just pray, God, that you would please place a hedge of protection around him, keep him safe. And I pray, God, that all of this exposure would not be for nothing, but Lord, that you would bring justice, to all of the victims that have suffered due to this child trafficking and the drug trafficking, the human trafficking that has been going on in this country. And I pray, God, that you would expose the criminals that are behind it, the ones that are propagating it. I pray, Lord, that there would be a massive cleansing of our political parties, and that you would absolutely end the corruption and the violence against children in this country, Lord. I just pray that you would please keep Dr. Corsi safe and help him to continue to have whistleblowers come forward to him and to bring this information to light. We just thank you, Lord, for this and for the show and for what you've been doing and in exposing this. And we pray for Trump and for his administration. We ask, God, that you would raise up within the Department of Justice those that will not be afraid to do what is right, no matter the cost, and that you would expose and remove and continue to remove those who are corrupt within our intelligence community, within our Department of Justice, within the FBI, that you would completely remove the corrupt from their positions of power. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Nate.
Well, thank you. And folks, again, I want to just remind you, please do go and check out godsfivestones.com and CorsiNation.com. Dr. Corsi, when is your show air, or when is it pre-record or is it live?
It's pre-recorded, but we air it Monday through Friday.
Awesome.
And it's on Rumble and many other stations as well. You take a look at our website, you can see all the places it's broadcast.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, folks, listen, we have to do our part. You know, we cannot sit by idly and pretend that, you know, just Trump alone is going to be able to clean up this nation and clean up those that are corrupt. We've got to do our part. And what that means is that if the Lord puts you into a position to where you see evil, you have a responsibility and a duty to do something about it. You have to say something about it. It's why I became a whistleblower. Believe me, I didn't want to do that. I didn't make any money from it. I didn't make any fame that, you know, was beneficial to me. If anything, it brought nothing but tragedy, harm, broken relationships, financial losses to me and my family. Just like what has happened to Dr. Corsi here with, you know, his relationship with his wife, and the impact against you for doing the right thing. Without a doubt, there is a challenge and there is a price to pay for doing the right thing. But again, just like you said, Dr. Corsi, I would never go back and change what I did, because I know that when I stand before God, I'm not going to hear, hey, remember when I put you at the FBI and you did nothing? You know, and some of us in this world take the easy path, but I would say most do. But we are called as Christians, as believers, you know, to take the path that is less chosen, right? Narrow are the gates that lead to heaven. So I want to remind everyone here, please do your part. If Lord puts you into a position to see something or to know something, reach out, pray about it, but reach out and talk to somebody about it. The current administration, I feel pretty confident that not all, but a lot of the corruption has been removed, excised out of the Department of Justice and the FBI. There's still, like I said, there's always going to be corruption there, but I do think that we've got good people at least in charge, and that gives me hope. And I know that you know, Trump, I think, is doing the best that he can, and I agree with you. I think he realizes that this is his last shot of being able to really make a difference, and I think we're going to see some. It's going to be an interesting, you know, next few years, seeing all that gets done. So, folks, please do like and subscribe to the show, and you know, check out my other shows. You can find those on the raisingcainshow.com. I also do a talk radio spot on Unleashed, the political news hour, part of America Out Loud Talk Radio, and I have a good time doing this. I've had to cut back my shows down to one show a week for each of those because of just my new job, which has been going really well, but it has kept me extremely busy. And but I do thank you all for joining tonight. I want to say God bless you and God bless America. Have a good night.
Raise some cane. You gotta raise some cane. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some cane, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some cane.